A lion doesn't roar before it strikes. The strongest man doesn't speak to intimidate. Some try to scare with noise or raw emotion. But true strength is quiet, unpredictable, and controlled. That's what makes it formidable. What you can't predict, you can't control. And what you can't control, you fear. In this world, the most intimidating man isn't the loudest. He's the one who commands the room in silence. His quiet isn't indifference, it's mastery. Seeing everything without reacting. Today, we'll forge that presence, not through tricks or words, but with 6 inner states drawn from ancient Stoic wisdom. Each one makes your adversaries question their every move. They can't read your next step or know who you are. That's why they fear you. Let's begin. They expect you to flinch or erupt. Instead, you meet them with silence. And the dynamic shifts. Most men react instinctively offended. They argue, threatened. They explain, provoked. They rage. But that's not strength. That's being puppeted by another's emotions. When your enemy controls your feelings, they've already won by stealing your peace. When you react, you signal they've pierced you. That's their goal. Imagine instead you don't flinch. Don't speak. Don't blink. You return a calm, unreadable gaze. Suddenly, they're unsure of what comes next. Suddenly, they're the ones exposed. That's what's truly intimidating. It's not noise, but silence that unnerves. In silence, you force your adversary to face their own flaws. You hold a mirror to their chaos, making them sit in it. They crave disorder. You give them stillness. They want drama. You offer emptiness, and emptiness never lies. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond. Respond with silence and absolute control. And you're not weak. You've won the inner battle." I knew a man, quiet, unassuming, never raised his voice. In a boardroom, a colleague tried to humiliate him, mocking his ideas as outdated before the team. He didn't argue or acknowledge the slight. He simply looked at his attacker and asked, "Are you done?" Then he turned back to his work. The room fell silent, heavy with tension. The attacker shrank. That silence didn't say, "I'm weak." It said, "You can't shake me. You don't define me." That silence broke his opponent more than any comeback could. A man unmoved is untouchable. He needs no proof, making him the most formidable presence in the room. So, train your stillness. Master the pause. Let the storm rage outside while you stand unshaken. In a world chasing reactions, refusing to react is your sharpest weapon. There's a presence that doesn't beg for permission. It doesn't demand attention or flaunt itself with volume, charm, or theatrics. It's simply calm, steady, unyielding. That's what makes it fearsome. Most men are just noise, filling space with anxious energy. They talk too much, move too fast, try too hard. They crave attention like air, validation like water. They fight to dominate, not realizing true strength doesn't need to conquer. It simply claims space without apology, rooted in authentic value, not performance. There's something unsettling about a man who doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, doesn't chase approval. He stands there, alert, yet silent, present, yet untouchable. His stillness shifts the room. People lower their voices when speaking to him. They choose words carefully. glance at him before finishing a thought, not because he demands it, but because his quiet energy commands it. That's real power, not the loud, demanding kind, but a force born from discipline, clarity, and restraint. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." A man with unshakable presence doesn't just ignore his foes, he rises so far above them they can't reach him. That's why they fear him. I knew a man named Elias, not tall or flashy, rarely smiling. Yet when he entered a room, eyes turned, not because he tried, but because he didn't need to. He moved deliberately, spoke only when necessary, held a gaze just long enough to unsettle, every gesture and silence purposeful, even without words. He conveyed something profound. In a cutthroat industry where egos reigned, meetings were loud. People argued to prove their worth. Elias stayed silent, waiting until the noise exhausted itself, then asked a single, piercing question, often just a few words, and suddenly, the room snapped from chaos to clarity. It wasn't just what he said, but how he carried himself. No wasted motion, no unneeded emotion. He was a reminder that in a reactive world, silence is a threat. People feared his quiet because it was unpredictable, a sign he was watching, calculating, choosing his moment. The ones who fear you most aren't the loudest. They're the ones who can't predict your next move. That's the power of a steady presence. It throws manipulators off balance, makes the noisy hesitate. It forces even the loudest voices to quiet before your silence. So, how do you build this? Stop performing. Stop chasing attention. Breathe slowly. Stand tall. Observe more than you speak. Train yourself to do nothing until your silence becomes the loudest force in the room. A man with purpose, clarity, and restraint doesn't rush. He makes the world slow down to meet him. When that happens, you don't need to claim power. You are power. People insult you for a reason, not always because they hate you, but because they fear you. They fear what you represent, your progress, your calm, your refusal to play their emotional games. So they attack, not with fists, but with words. Not to win, but to provoke. Insults aren't about truth, they're about control. They want to break your balance, test if they can steal your peace. They want to feel strong by making you react. But the moment you respond, you hand them what they want. No matter how clever your retort or justified your anger, if your peace is shaken for even a moment, they've won. But when you don't blink, don't explain, don't even acknowledge their jab, their words echo louder in their own heads. Silence in the face of attack isn't weakness, it's a verdict. A calm declaration that their words don't merit your response. Nothing humbles more than being ignored by the one you tried to wound. I knew a woman, Clara, in a toxic workplace where gossip and subtle hostility were currency. One colleague, envious and petty, constantly tried to undermine Clara with sly insults, backhanded compliments, whispered jabs, sarcasm framed as humor in meetings. Clara never took the bait. Not once. She'd offer a faint smile, take notes, focus on her work, and leave the room as composed as when she entered. Over time, something shifted. The attacker grew louder, more vicious, desperate for a reaction, but the louder she got, the smaller she seemed. Eventually, People stopped laughing, stopped listening. When you keep swinging at an unmoving wall, you look foolish. Clara didn't fight back or expose her foe. She stood so firm that her adversary crumbled under her own weight. That's Stoic wisdom. Let the fool reveal themselves. Let insults fall meaningless before your silence. Let attackers collapse under their own insecurities. Epictetus wrote, "If someone speaks ill of you, don't defend yourself. Say, clearly, they don't know the real me." Don't give your enemies the satisfaction of your anger or clarity. Give them silence. For the man who doesn't defend himself has either lost or stands so far above the fight, it never touches him. Be the latter. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your dignity be unbreakable. The next time someone insults you, smile not because it doesn't sting, but because it doesn't reach what matters most. People fear the unpredictable, and when you become unreadable, you become formidable. Control starts with information. Your fears, ambitions, habits, weaknesses, their leverage in the wrong hands. The more you talk, the more you explain, the more they learn not to understand you, but to manipulate, unsettle, or outmaneuver you. Stay reserved. Move without warning, and you become a puzzle they can't solve. A storm they can't predict. That's what's terrifying. You don't need to lie or deceive. Just create distance between who you are and what they know. The Stoics lived quietly, acting with purpose. Not for attention. They shared only what was necessary, never everything. Because every detail revealed can be weaponized. Seneca said, "Knowing when to speak and when to stay silent is a great art." Sometimes, silence isn't just wisdom, it's defense. I knew a man, Caleb, soft-spoken, disciplined, never oversharing. When pressed about his private life, he'd smile, deflect gently, never coldly. Some called him mysterious, others arrogant, but over time, those same people grew to respect him. Why? Because they couldn't read him. They didn't know what angered him, what rattled him, or what he truly wanted, so they couldn't use it against him. When pressure mounted and rumors swirled, Caleb remained untouchable. No one could find his emotional triggers. His plans stayed hidden, his moves like a shadow. They feared what he might do next because his limits were unknown. That's the power of being unreadable. To forge that armor, stop broadcasting your every move. Don't announce your goals or bare every corner of your mind. Let them guess. Let them wonder. Let them falter. A man who holds his secrets doesn't hide weakness, he guards his strength. The world has no weapon against a man who walks in silence, wielding his truth like a blade, revealing only what the moment demands. Let them study you. Try to crack your silence. Exhaust themselves chasing a pattern that exists only in your will. In a world obsessed with talk, action is rare and fearsome. Everyone declares their next step, their plans, their transformations, mistaking attention for progress. But the more you say, the more predictable you become. The more predictable, the easier to stop. A man who acts in silence builds without fanfare, plans without promises. He's unstoppable. By the time the world reacts, it's too late. The Stoics didn't care for words. They didn't post daily affirmations or flaunt their virtues. They lived quietly, with resolve and discipline. Epictetus said it best. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Let others talk, sell their dreams. Chase applause for ideas of success, while you pursue success itself. Act without warning, and your results will speak louder than any declaration. I knew a woman, Samira, sharp and resolute, yet so quiet, she was almost invisible. While colleagues bragged about new projects, future promotions, or side hustles, Samira just worked. At first, they overlooked her, thinking her weak, passive, forgettable. Then one day, her name came up as the architect of a system that saved millions. Suddenly, all eyes were on her, but by then, she'd already moved on, promoted, reassigned, elevated beyond their reach because they were too busy talking to notice her. That's the power of silent action. It shifts the balance unexpectedly, delivers results without explanation, and leaves rivals stunned, not because they didn't see you coming, but because they misjudged you until it was too late. To cultivate that strength, shut the door. Work diligently in silence. Let your efforts echo without fanfare. Don't warn anyone. Don't proclaim your greatness. Don't overpromise. Just vanish into action and emerge with results. When you act without announcement, you sidestep opposition and spark. Fear not of what you say you'll do, but of what you might do next. That silence, that tension, that mystery becomes more potent than any words you could speak. In a world chasing likes, applause, and social approval, most bend themselves to fit smiling when they don't want to, nodding despite disagreement, dimming their truth to avoid conflict. But the man who stands firm in his own truth becomes a threat, not because he's cruel or combative, but because he reminds others of what they've surrendered. Authenticity challenges those who hide behind facades. When you stop blending in, you unsettle others, not by attacking them, but by reflecting what they've long abandoned, the courage to be themselves. I knew a man, Jace, not loud or abrasive, but his presence stirred discomfort without effort. He spoke clearly, never softening his tone to please. He ignored trends, dressed as he chose, said what he thought. When others gossiped, he stayed silent, not from fear, but from principle. Some avoided him, called him harsh or arrogant, but deep down, they felt pressure not from him, but from their own inability to match his resolve. He was simply himself, unapologetic, consistent, a rebellion quieter yet bolder than any uproar. The Stoics believed in living true to your nature, not the world's expectations or the crowd's mood, but to virtue, integrity, consistency, especially when it sets you apart. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste time debating what a good man should be. Be one. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to match the room's energy or be understood. Just be real." In a world built on performance, authenticity is fearsome. To become that force, stop apologizing for who you are. Stop dulling your edges to be palatable. Don't hide your sharpness, your pace, your clarity just to comfort others. Say less, but mean it. Say no when it's no. Walk away when it's over. Never apologize for the standards you hold, so long as you hold them for yourself first. When you become your unyielding self, unshaken by attention, unswayed by applause, you walk with a quiet weight that makes the weak adjust their masks before you even glance their way. You don't shout, threaten, or beg for respect, yet they hesitate, doubt, and fear what you might do, because you give them nothing to read, only to feel. You don't fight your enemies. You become the presence that unsettles them just by existing. No noisy, no drama, just the quiet strength of self-mastery. The most formidable man isn't the loudest, but the one who needs no words to command respect. So, don't shout. Don't explain. Don't rush for attention. Let your silence speak. Let your boundaries resonate. Let your stillness cut deeper than they ever expected. And when they finally see who you are, you're already gone calm, focused, untouchable. If this stirs something in you, if you feel the pull to become that quiet force, leave a comment. I'm done explaining. I act and commit. Not because anyone demands it, but because you're tired of ordinary. Welcome to the power of silent strength.